Greetings, hello, how you doing? How your mama and them? How your kinfolk? Jay Gideon Winfrey here for another episode of Sound Mind. Thank you so much for the support of Sound Mind and tuning in to this episode. Not just Sound Mind, but all of the great programming that we have here on Hope TV. We have some, literally 24-hour, just great, wholesome, thought-provoking, family-oriented content here at Hope TV. So please, 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 if you're watching Sound Mind, please go and support the other shows and whatnot. And don't forget also to, on Sundays, to tune in for the worship service House of Hope Atlanta provides. So you get everything that you're needing. You know, you get some comedy, you get some insight, but you also get therapy. And that's why I'm here at Sound Mind. So thank you so much for tuning in for episode 2. You know, in episode 1, we talked about the psychology of forgiveness, and I really, really hope that you go and get that, because we want to make certain that we are not just having conversation, but we want to have conversation that leads to conversion through conviction, okay? So conversation, conviction, and conversion, because we want to change. You know, we're not just here for the sake of talking. We want things to literally elevate and shift in our atmosphere, shift in our lives, and we can see the long-term benefits of what happens when you have a truly sound mind, what happens when you are truly, truly, truly working on being the absolute best you can be, okay? One of the things I always tell my patient population that I work with in therapy is the best thing a person can do is self-work, particularly if you're in a relationship. I say that to a lot of my marriage therapy couples, where if you work on yourself, by default, you become better in every other category. You're going to be a better mother, a better father, a better wife, a better husband, a better employee, a better employer, a better entrepreneur. You're just better when you work on yourself. And that's the gift of what therapy does. And therapy allows an individual to come into a safe place, okay? A safe place to be able to unpack all of their stuff and be able to sort through it with additional hands, with additional eyes and ears, and additional insight. So that's what I pray I'm able to give my patient population. That's what I've been committed to for the past 26 years, and by God's grace has worked. One of the greatest benefits that I can say that I've ever experienced is when I see a person starting to grow and starting to overcome some of the things that have chained them down for years, and some of the generational things that I've seen people start to break away from, and I get excited about that as a therapist. So even after 26 years of being a clinical practitioner, I still have that, what I call that freshman year excitement, where I'm just ready to get to work with people so that they can get to their higher ground. It's a blessing for me just to have a front row seat, just to see people change and elevate for the better. And that's why we're here at Sound Mind, okay? So if you didn't watch episode 1, you might want to rewind and go and get that, okay? Because I really want you to get the psychology of forgiveness down, okay? Thank you so much for the insight. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the sharing. You all are great about sharing the content and interacting with the show. And I just want to thank you all so much from my heart. Really, really, really. It just means so much to me that you all just take time out of your busy day. You stop scrolling. You stop posting. You just spend a little time here because you want to have a sound mind and have sound footing so that you can make sound decisions. And it's really humbling to me. So thank you all so much. I just really want you to know that from my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's dive in. I'm so ready. I'm so ready. I'm so ready for this episode, because between season 5 and 6, God really was talking to me, and I was really pulling some of the things that I've seen in therapy and things that tend to come up. And then literally when the Holy Spirit get to moving, and then it interfaces with my clinical acumen, then some things can happen. And I'm able to pull some things just based off of the challenges that people have presented in therapy and some of the tools that we've utilizing. So we're not just going to be talking about dynamics, we're going to also be giving you tools to actually work through things, okay? So that you'll be able to apply these things and truly, truly, truly change the landscape of your life as you know it, okay? So episode 2, what we're going to be talking about is living in an understanding way, all right? Living in an understanding way. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I want to give you the backdrop about what I mean by living in an understanding way, okay? What I did as one of the first projects I wanted to do for 2022 under my my private practice, which is called Valiant Therapy. So feel free to check me out on Valiant Therapy, valianttherapy.com. Also have a YouTube channel as well. But one of the things that I wanted to do is to really help husbands be able to be awesome husbands. Okay, I'm a husband myself. That's my charge. I absolutely love my wife, but I love the God that gave me my wife. So because I love the God that gave me my wife, I wanted to do some research to help other husbands be the best husbands they can be. And so because y'all know how I am, how I get down here at Sound Mind, I believe in using the sacred to influence the secular, okay? Because I believe that the Bible has a lot of the blueprints, actually all the blueprints for everything that we need in this life. So taking biblical theology and then finding the corresponding clinical modalities and putting it together is really how I'm able to help populations be better, but particularly in this aspect, the husbands. So what I came up with was an initiative called the 4 Biblically Based Husband Charges, okay? Now, what the 4 biblically based husband charges are is actual steps, processes that I take husbands through that come to me either for husbands to be in premarital, or husbands that are coming to me for marriage therapy. Oftentimes what I like to do is I like to spin the husbands off. I spin the wives off too. I like to separate them one-on-one to have some time. But when I'm working with the husbands, I like to give them these 4 biblically based husband charges, okay? Now, I'm not going to tell you the 4 biblically based husband charges because you're going to have to go to the YouTube channel to see that. But what I will do is tell you which one influenced this particular episode topic, which is living in an understanding way. So the second charge of my 4 biblically based husband charges is husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, which comes from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Now, when I researched it and broke it down and how I give it to husbands, it's really helping them to understand how to live with your wife in an understanding way. And I got so much positive feedback from my patient population when I shared it with my YouTube audience, my Facebook audience. I got so much positive information that I realized that you just can't take this and just keep it for husbands, because everybody wants to be able to live with those that we love, even those that we may not have the best relationships with, in an understanding way. Because I love how the Bible takes that and charges a husband to say, husbands, live with your wife in an understanding way. Because a lot of times my husbands in therapy will say, I just don't understand. I'm completely clueless. There's no understanding. She's not understanding me. I'm not understanding her. So we just some non-understanding folk. So looking at this and doing the research, here's what I was able to come up with. And this is what I want to share with you all today in episode 2 of season 6, living in an understanding way. Okay. Here's the first thing we got to understand. I want you to understand this, and I want you to get this and get it good, okay? I want you to understand that there's a difference between understand and having understanding, okay? I want to say that again. There's a difference between understand, to understand, and having understanding, because they're not the same thing. So what I want to help us be able to understand how to do is, how do we have understanding if we don't understand, okay? Because oftentimes you interact with people, I don't understand. I don't understand why they think that way. I don't understand why you responded that way. I don't understand why you're acting that way. And part of the issue is we're trying to understand something when maybe, just maybe, playing angel's advocate, maybe we should be focusing on having understanding versus trying to understand. And I'm going to break that down for you so you can understand. What I don't understand, I can get understanding of, okay? Because when you talk about to understand something means almost as if you're saying it has to make sense to you. And that's often where we go wrong in our relationships, even with ourselves. It has to make sense to us. Even in our faith, well, Lord, I don't understand, because it doesn't make sense. So a lot of times we get stuck, and we often will pull back because we're trying to understand. But if we shift the focus from trying to understand to getting understanding, now we're working with something. Now we got something in our favor. That we can work that out. We can work out understanding. And that's what I'm here to help you with. So I just need you to get the preliminaries. I wanted you to know the background and the story of where it came from. Okay, so if you ever see it again, well, Dr. Winfrey said that in Sound Mind. Well, yeah, it came from another project, but it was just so profound that I just saw it to be, a tool that everyone can use.
You know, even if you purchase a new home, projects never end, they never stop. So it's like you think you finished something and here it is, something else comes up, seasons change.
I think this is where American homebuyers get it wrong. You've got this house that you're buying and you're going to have it for the next 15 to 30 years. Take care of the real repairs first.
Yeah.
If you want to put in flooring, if you want to paint or wallpaper or do new lighting, look for the Home Depot sales and the Lowe's sales and the suppliers out there that are going to train you for free. You can take a class to put in flooring. I think a lot of members want to do the HGTV house right off the bat. The things that are improvement related, take your time. You've got time. You don't need to run out and buy furniture for a house. You don't need to rent it, live in it. Understand your home. Your home has a vibe. How do you want it to feel? How you want it to look? You're not going to know that within the first 6-7 months of living in that home. It takes about a good year. Slow down. You don't need the biggest, the baddest, the best. You need the most affordable.
One thing that we talked about last week is about the disparity between African Americans when it comes to diseases such as Alzheimer's and dementia.
There's over 70 types of dementias that's out there, and Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. And so you can have problems with your memory, so memory loss. You can have problems with language. So there's something called expressive aphasia, where you can't get out the right words. You're calling the microwave, the remote control. You have problem-solving issues and other thinking abilities. That is what sums up and falls under dementia.
When you look at understanding, here's what I want you to understand, all right? Understanding has 3 components to it, all right? Understanding has 3 components. So if you want to be understanding, there are 3 components that you have to be mindful of, okay? And I'm going to take you through each one of these components. I want you to write this. I want you to get it. Because when you write it out, that means you invested, okay? I want you to listen to it on your way to work, remix it, rewind it, whatever you got to do. But I need you to get this, okay? I need you to get this. I'm giving you 10 years of school in 30 minutes. So I want you to get it because you are our Hope TV family, Sound Mind family, and I really want you to get this. So keep in mind, 3 components to understanding. Now, the first component of understanding is being sympathetic or having sympathy. So it can be sympathy, sympathetic, or being sympathetic or having sympathy, okay? Now, y'all know how I like to give you the origins of words because I want you to understand where the definitions come from, because if you have an understanding of the words and their origin or their etymology, then it gives you the ability to better take ownership of it and really grasp it, okay? When you look at the word sympathy, okay, sympathy has Greek etymology or Greek origins, okay? Sympathy in its Greek form means son, pathos, okay? Son, S-U-N, which means with, W-I-T-H, okay? Son means with. But then pathos means feeling. So being sympathetic, or the term sympathy, means with feeling, all right? Meaning you care. It means you're genuinely concerned. It means that it really matters to you. So when you talk about understanding in this realm of the first component, which is being sympathetic or having sympathy, you can't be understanding if you genuinely don't care. It's impossible. It's virtually impossible to be understanding and you're genuinely not concerned. So a lot of times if you don't understand something, or if you don't have understanding, it's because maybe we haven't put forth the effort to truly show that we care. Maybe we haven't put forth the effort to truly be emotionally invested, okay? So because of that, if we don't have a sense of feeling, it's going to be difficult to get understanding because you don't feel anything, okay? So that's why it's important to have that first component, is to be sympathetic. Now, sympathetic doesn't mean I feel sorry for you, or, you know, people like to think of that term as far as somebody being broken down or in a state of distress. You know, that's an extreme form of the word sympathetic. But when we talk about sympathetic, it just means that I care enough to feel where you are. So sympathetic and empathetic. You know, we hear the word being empathetic or the word empathy. It means that I actually can feel where you're coming from. Sympathetic is I have a feeling for what it is that you're going through. I can hurt for you. I can lament for you. I could desire for you, but there's a feeling attached to it. So if you have a feeling attached to a person or a dynamic, that's the first hurdle that we overcome in being understanding, because I can't have understanding if I don't have feeling. So a lot of times when couples come to me, people come to me and say, well, my spouse isn't understanding of what I'm going through. It means oftentimes not that they don't comprehend, because they can comprehend, but there's no feeling attached, okay? There's no feeling attached. So if there's no feeling attached, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to be understanding, okay? So I want us to get that first component of being sympathetic or having sympathy. And remember, sympathy comes from the Greek origins of the word son, pathos, with feeling. So we want to approach the desire to be understanding with feeling. We care. We care enough to feel. All right? So we got that? We good? We good? Okay, good. All right, so let's go to our second component of understanding, which is awareness. The second component of understanding is awareness, or seeking awareness. Okay, I like to say seeking awareness. This is how I teach this in my marriage therapy sessions. Seeking awareness, okay? So when you talk about seeking awareness, what we're saying is basically awareness is knowledge attainment, the seeking of clarity, the seeking of definition. So it's knowledge attainment, the seeking of clarity, the seeking of definition. Now, if you're talking about being understanding, seeking awareness is clearly one of the important dynamics, because in seeking awareness, what we're saying is I care enough to want to know what's going on. Can't have understanding if I don't care enough to actively seek the dynamics of what's going on. So I'm going to need knowledge, okay? I'm going to ask questions because I want to get clarity. I want to get an understanding, so I got to get definition. What does this mean for us? What does this mean for you? Now, one of the things that I tell my couples, and I also do this in individual therapy, I always say it's important that with any transition in your life, there needs to be a conversation. One of the things that contributes to our deteriorating mental health and our decompensation of our overall quality of life is that we don't do enough talking. You know, things just happen in our life and we don't have the conversations needed to help us process through. So as a result, we have a lot of things that end up kind of being bottled in, and we think we're okay because life is going on, but we never really had a conversation about it. So therefore, it's difficult for us to have understanding if we're not actively seeking through that awareness. We're not seeking to get the knowledge. We're not seeking to get the clarity. We're not seeking to get the definition. So what ends up happening in the long run is we get frustrated because we don't have understanding. I saw a lot of impairments and lack of understanding when the pandemic hit, and to this day. And the reason why I believe that's happened is because when the pandemic hit, in a lot of instances, we as a collective whole, as a tribe of people, we didn't take the time to actually have the conversations about how we felt about everything that was going on, because it was so sudden, it was so much of a shift, it was such a stark contrast to what we knew life to be. And as a result, we were so busy reacting that we didn't respond. And because we didn't respond, we didn't have an understanding. So a lot of families went through some hardships, to this very day still going through hardships. There were hardships that people felt professionally because of the pandemic. There were hardships that marriages took a big hit. Some marriages are still taking those hits because we just haven't had the conversation. So what I want to say to you all, please, 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 if you do nothing else, whenever there's a transition in your life, new job, breakup, new car, loss of a friendship, somebody transitioning from this realm to the next, have a conversation about it. If you don't have a conversation about it, you will never get understanding without a conversation, which basically comes down to seeking awareness. Seek that awareness. Seek the knowledge of how you feel, how it impacted you. Get clarity on your feelings, clarity on your position. Get clarity in terms of your definition of what you want your life to look like. So have those internal conversations.
Today we are talking about caregiving while Black. Specifically, we're talking about dementia today.
My mom was the glue, if you will. It took all of us coming together, and it wasn't an easy coming together. Sometimes there was a lot of disagreement in what needed to be done. But when it came to my mom and the things that she needed to improve her outcomes, we came together and made it happen.
You budget, you pay bills.
Yet somehow women like you, like me,
Are 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to save ourselves by setting a goal to save 2% more of our income for our retirement.
Why 2?
1% honors you.
And 1% honors all womankind.
So come on, learn more about the 2% challenge at WeSaySaveIt.org.
Hi, this is Lena Bird Miles, and you're watching Tea and Worship right here on Hope TV.
Now, what I tell my population that does choose to have a spiritual dynamic added to their treatment, I always tell them this: pray, process, then present. Okay? That's part of seeking awareness. Pray, process, present. Okay? And the reason why that's so important is praying is the first filter that we utilize that allows us to be very raw with our emotions. Now, this is still part of the seeking awareness part. It's still the second component. I'm just giving you some levels to it, okay? Praying allows us to really just tell God exactly how we feel, okay? Raw, no filter. That's what I love about prayer, is that God allows us to be so raw and real, and he's not going to throw it back in our face. And actually, what I tell my population is, because of what I get in my prayer life personally, I try to pattern my therapy sessions off of what I get out of prayer. Now, I want to be very clear, because I don't want people thinking, well, you know, he said that his sessions are like prayer and what God does for him. No, I'm not saying that by no stretch of the imagination. So I very, very clearly want to state that. But what I am saying, because I benefited from that, that is actually what I want to duplicate in my therapy sessions. The freedom that I'm able to get to just say whatever is what I try to give my population, because that's what prayer gives me. So it allows me to be raw, tell God, I didn't like this, this person did this to me, I'm tired of this, and God just sits back and lets me say it. So it makes room for me to be able to get understanding, okay? So that's the praying part. Now, praying and processing, okay? Processing is when we take the information and we keep filtering through it. We keep filtering through it because we're trying to make it make sense to us. We're trying to get understanding. So we may have to loop that a couple of times. Pray, which is a form of processing and filtering, and then you have processing, okay? You have processing, which is also a form of filtering as well. So you can go between those two phases until you get ready to present, okay? I tell my couples, I tell my individuals that I work with, do not present anything until you have prayed and processed. And for those that may not be spiritually inclined, I say, well, just process. And that's where I come in as their therapist, is that process it with me. I tell my couples or individuals that get frustrated, if you get frustrated, shoot me a text. Whatever it is that you want to say to that person, send it to me. Because I want it to get out of their system. I want it to make room for new possibilities and new tools, and it has a right to be expressed. But sometimes the intended recipient may not need to hear that, or you may have consequences for that if it's just too raw. So you always want to make sure that you pray and then present. Well, people ask, well, Dr. Winfrey, how do you know when I'm ready to present? Real easy answer for that. You'll know that you're ready to present when you can say that thing that you're feeling and you don't feel that anxiousness. You don't feel that feeling in your stomach. Your chest doesn't burn. Your mouth doesn't get dry. Your voice doesn't quiver. That's how you know that you're ready to present the information. So we're going to pray and process, pray and process, pray and process. All this is part of seeking awareness. Pray and process until we're ready. Because once we get ready to present, the beautiful part in the presenting part is that you will be so sure of your feelings, you will be so grounded because you did what I call the work. You've done the work. So you can come across very confidently, and you can come across in a way that doesn't give someone the impression of you being emotionally unstable or being emotional. So that process is important, and that's what we do in therapy is we process. We process until we get to the point that we can just lay it out flat and we're calm. And that's a beautiful feeling to see as a therapist when a patient of mine that used to be so upset about something could not talk about it without crying, could not talk about it without sometimes using expletives, could not talk about it without being angry. And they can say the same thing, but it's so potent and so pronounced because they've processed through the impurities. All that is a part of the seeking awareness. We want to have knowledge, we want to gain clarity, and we want to gain definition. And this is how we go about it so that we can get understanding, okay? So all of this is tying together. I want to make sure you get this, okay? Again, I'm giving you 10 years of schooling in 30 minutes, okay? Because I want you to really, really get it, and I want you to have the quality of life that God has ordained you to have and that we're worthy to have if we do the work, okay? All right, so we got the first two components. Remember, the first one was being sympathetic or having sympathy. The second was seeking awareness. Now we come to the payoff. The third component, which is my favorite one out the three. It's my favorite one. The third component is giving tolerance. Giving tolerance is the third component of how to get to understanding. Now, this one is where we do the heaviest lifting, okay? We do the heaviest lifting with the giving or providing of tolerance. Because when we talk about tolerance, here's the definition that we have for tolerance. And I want you to kind of home in on this because I want you to understand really what tolerance is, okay? I don't want you to have a misconception of it because I want you to understand what it is and you realize just how powerful it is for your well-being, okay? When we talk about tolerance, what tolerance is saying by definition is it's the ability or willingness to endure certain behaviors that we don't necessarily agree with without adverse reaction, okay? Tolerance is the willingness to endure certain behaviors that we don't agree with without an adverse reaction. So let me break that down in terms of lay terms. Basically, when we say tolerance is, I'm willing to walk with you, I'm willing to rock with you. Don't agree with you, don't really like what you're doing in this season, okay? In this season. But I'm gonna do so without punishing you for it. I'm gonna do so without there being an adverse reaction, okay? So when we talk about tolerance, we're basically saying, yeah, I disagree with it, don't necessarily like it, but because for a time period, I'm willing to rock with it, I'm willing to walk with you without punishing you for it. A lot of times you see in our society that we have such an issue with tolerance in our society. If somebody thinks differently, people just show a lack of tolerance. One of the things my mom always said to me, and Lord rest her soul, she always said to me very early on, son, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion, because just people's tolerance. And I didn't understand that when I was younger, but if you really want to get some heated exchange and dialogue, bring up religion and bring up politics. And people get real heated about that. And I've had conversations in those same dynamics where I look and then I thank God that the tolerance kicks in, where I can disagree with a person, but I'm not going to punish them for it. That's what tolerance is. Tolerance is saying, I don't agree with you. But for a time period, I'm going to continue to walk with you without punishing you for having a difference in opinion. Now, the key thing in tolerance is tolerance does not mean ongoing. It doesn't mean as if it does not have a time limit. Tolerance means just that. It's tolerating for a period of time. Because what I don't want you to think is that in saying, in the process of getting understanding, where if we're being tolerant and we're giving tolerance, it means that we just put up with whatever people are doing for an extended period of time. No, that's not what I'm saying. But it gives us the opportunity to have conversation and dialogue that allows us to move forward without there being a negative reaction, okay? So when you look at understanding and you put it all together, here's what we're saying understanding has to have in terms of three components. Has to have sympathy, got to be sympathetic with feeling. Has to have awareness. How do we have awareness? We're seeking clarity. We're wanting to get understanding. We're seeking an increased knowledge. And how do we do that? We ask questions. We have dialogue. We're willing to let go of what we think and replace it with what they tell us. That's very important in your relationships. If you want to get understanding, you have to unscript your mind, okay? You have to ask a person a question, and they give you their answer, and that's their answer. I say that to married couples a lot. I practice it in my own life. If you tell me something, that's your answer. So I will let go of what it is that I think and put in place what you said, because that way it proves that I was listening to you. Now, if you remember from from season 5, we talked about the 5 pillars of communication. And remember I said to you that listening is when a person can see their words and your behaviors, okay? When a person can see their words and your behaviors, that's evidence and proof that you're listening, okay? So understanding that, again, the three components that, the last component is tolerance. So the three components of understanding is being sympathetic, seeking awareness, demonstrating tolerance. If you do those three things, it shows you what understanding is. It is a process, it is ongoing. And oftentimes you'll find if you have understanding, you really won't feel the need to understand because you have understanding, all right? So I hope that blessed you all tremendously, as much as it blessed my population, as far as sharing it with them, as much as it blesses me to this day in my own private life as well. So I wanted to share those things with you. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. You all have been a tremendous audience. Thank you so much. Continue to support Hope TV and all of the great quality programming that we have. And as we always do about this time at the end, as I always want to bless you in going out and saying, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he turn his loving smile and countenance towards you, blessing you in your going outs and your coming ins. And may he give thee shalom peace. I am Jay Gideon Winfrey, licensed therapist, and we will see you next week for another episode of Sound Mind. And remember, utilize your theology to guide your psychology, because sound doctrine leads to a sound mind. Take care. Love y'all. Be safe. We'll do it again next week. Bye.